The real estate agent slid the keys across Dad's mahogany desk and smiled at my brother Tyler. "Congratulations, Mr. Bennett. The sale closed this morning. The buyers take possession next week." I stood in the doorway of our father's study, my shopping bag still in my hands. I'd only stopped by to pick up some photo albums Mom had asked me to retrieve. The house was supposed to be empty. Tyler nodded. Shaking the agent's hand like this was perfectly normal. Like I hadn't just walked into my childhood home to watch strangers claim it. My throat went dry. "What sale?" Nobody answered me. The agent gathered her papers. Tyler checked his phone. The silence felt deliberate, rehearsed. That's when I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was already done. My brother had sold our father's house without telling me, and everyone in this room knew about it except me. The agent finally acknowledged my presence with a polite smile. "You must be the sister. Tyler mentioned you might stop by." She extended her hand. "I'm Patricia Morris from Westside Realty." I didn't shake it. My arms felt heavy, useless. "The buyers are thrilled," Patricia continued, oblivious to my shock. "They're planning a complete renovation. Such a beautiful property. Your father had excellent taste." Past tense. Like Dad's existence here meant nothing anymore. Tyler finally looked at me. His expression carefully neutral. "Vanessa, we can talk about this later. Patricia needs to get to her next appointment." The casual dismissal in his voice made my hands shake. "We can talk about this later." As if this was a minor scheduling conflict, not the sale of our family home. "When did this happen?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. Tyler's jaw tightened. "Let's not do this right now." After Patricia left, I confronted Tyler in the living room where Dad used to read his evening paper. The furniture was still there, but everything felt hollow, staged. "You sold Dad's house." The words sounded absurd even as I said them. "You didn't think to mention it." Tyler sighed heavily, like I was being unreasonable. "I tried calling you last week. You didn't pick up. You left a voicemail saying you wanted to grab coffee. I was going to tell you then. But you sold it anyway. Before we even talked." He rubbed his temples in that theatrical way he did when he wanted people to know he was stressed. "Vanessa, please. Everything's handled. The market was perfect, and this buyer came in with a serious offer. I had to move fast." Handled. The word made me want to scream. Dad had been gone for 3 months, and Tyler had handled everything. "My name is Vanessa Bennett, and I'm 32 years old." Standing in that living room, watching my older brother dismiss my questions with practiced patience, I finally understood something I'd been avoiding for months. I had trusted the wrong person with everything that mattered. After Dad's funeral, Tyler had stepped up immediately. He'd handled the paperwork, organized the estate, dealt with lawyers and accountants. Everyone praised him for being so responsible, so mature. Even Mom, who'd divorced Dad 15 years ago but still cared about his affairs, kept telling me how lucky I was to have such a capable brother. I'd been grieving, barely functional. I'd let Tyler take control because it felt easier than facing the overwhelming details of Dad's death. That trust now felt like the biggest mistake of my life. The house wasn't just 4 walls and a mortgage. It was every memory that mattered. Dad teaching me to ride a bike in the driveway, running beside me until I found my balance. The kitchen where he'd made pancakes every Sunday morning, always burning the first one. The stairs where we'd sit together after Mom left, and he'd promise me that everything would be okay. My brother knew all of this. We'd grown up in the same house, shared the same memories, which made what he'd done so much worse. I walked through the rooms slowly, touching the walls, trying to memorize everything before it belonged to someone else. Tyler followed me, maintaining his calm demeanor. "It's just a house, Vanessa." I turned to face him. "No, it wasn't. Not to Dad. Not to me." He shrugged. "Dad's gone. We can't live in the past." After Dad's death, Tyler had moved quickly. Within days he was organizing files, contacting attorneys, scheduling meetings with financial advisors. "You're too emotional right now," he'd told me when I'd offered to help. "Let me handle the business side. You focus on healing." It sounded caring at the time. Protective, even. Everyone at the funeral had commented on how well Tyler was managing everything. How responsible he was. How lucky I was to have an older brother who could take charge during such a difficult time. I'd believed them. I'd believed him. Tyler had always been the successful one. The one with the corporate job and the downtown apartment. The one who planned everything 3 steps ahead. Meanwhile, I taught elementary school and lived in a small rental across town. In our family dynamics, Tyler was the competent one, and I was the sensitive one. That distinction had never bothered me before. Now it felt like a weapon he'd been sharpening for years. I'd asked to see Dad's will several times. Tyler always had an excuse. "It's with the lawyers. They're reviewing the estate tax implications. I'll get you a copy next week. I'm buried at work right now. It's mostly standard stuff. The house gets split between us eventually. Don't worry about the details." Eventually. That word again. Always vague, always promising something that never materialized. He'd summarized the will for me once, sitting in this very living room. Dad had left everything to be divided equally between us. The house, the savings, the investment accounts. Tyler would handle the administrative work, and once everything was settled, we'd each get our share. I'd nodded along, trusting his interpretation. Trusting that my brother wouldn't lie to me about our father's final wishes. I never demanded to see the actual document. That oversight would haunt me. Tyler handed me a check 2 weeks after the sale closed. We met at a coffee shop near his office because he didn't have much time. I looked at the number. My stomach dropped. "This is my portion." I kept my voice steady even though I wanted to scream. "Half of the net proceeds after closing costs, realtor fees, and estate expenses." Tyler's tone was matter-of-fact, almost bored. "It's all itemized in the documents I emailed you." The check was less than a third of what the house had been worth. I knew because I'd looked up the sale price online that morning. The estate expenses were that high. Tyler stirred his coffee, not meeting my eyes. "Estate lawyers aren't cheap, Vanessa. Plus Dad had some debts I had to settle. Credit cards, medical bills from his last hospital stay. It adds up." Something about his explanation felt wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint exactly what. The numbers were there, professional and official looking. But the total didn't match what I knew Dad's finances had been like. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed replaying every conversation with Tyler since Dad's death. His confidence when discussing the estate. The way he'd discouraged my questions. How quickly he'd moved to sell the house. The check that felt like an insult disguised as a gift. At 2 a.m, I pulled out my laptop and started researching estate law. I read articles about probate, executors, beneficiary rights. Most of it went over my head, but certain phrases stuck out. Both beneficiaries must approve major estate decisions. Executors have a fiduciary duty to act in all beneficiaries' interests. Unauthorized sales can be legally challenged. I grabbed the documents Tyler had emailed me and read through them carefully. The estate expenses seemed inflated. Some charges were vague, lacking detailed invoices. And nowhere in the paperwork did I see anything requiring my approval for the house sale. That's when I knew. Tyler hadn't just made a mistake. He'd deliberately cut me out. I finally requested the full will from the county probate office. Took 3 days to arrive by mail. I read it in my kitchen, hands shaking. Most of the language sounded exactly like Dad. Straightforward, warm, making sure both his children were provided for equally. He'd clearly worked with a lawyer to make everything official, but his personality came through in certain phrases. Then I reached the final clause. The language shifted. It was precise, technical, deliberate. Not like anything else in the document. In the event that any major asset of the estate, including but not limited to the primary residence, is sold or transferred without the written consent of all named beneficiaries, the executor's authority shall be immediately revoked. Furthermore, any proceeds from such unauthorized transaction shall be held in escrow pending legal review, with a non-consenting beneficiary granted primary decision-making authority over estate resolution. I read it 3 times, my heart pounding harder each time. This wasn't standard legal language. Dad had specifically added this protection. He'd known something like this might happen. I made an appointment with Harriet Chen, the estate attorney whose name appeared on Dad's will. Her office was downtown, occupying the 10th floor of a glass tower. Harriet was in her 50s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She invited me to sit and listened carefully as I explained the situation. When I finished, she pulled out her copy of the will and read the final clause silently. Her expression remained neutral, but I noticed her jaw tighten slightly. "Did your brother show you this document before selling the house?" she asked. "No. He summarized it for me but never gave me a copy." "And did you sign anything authorizing the sale?" "Nothing." Harriet leaned back in her chair, studying me. "Did both beneficiaries approve the sale in writing?" My heart started pounding. "No. Just my brother." The silence that followed felt heavy with implications. Harriet's expression shifted from neutral to concerned. "That's a problem," she said quietly. Harriet explained the clause's implications carefully. Dad had worked with her to add that specific protection shortly before he died. "Your father was worried," she told me. He loved both his children, but he'd noticed some concerning patterns in Tyler's behavior. Financial aggressiveness. A tendency to make unilateral decisions. Your father wanted to ensure you'd be protected if Tyler tried to control everything. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger exactly. Clarity. Dad had seen this coming. He'd known Tyler might try something like this. And he'd built in a safeguard. "What happens now?" Yes. Harriet pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. "The sale was unauthorized. That clause isn't just symbolic. It has real legal force. We can challenge the transaction. If we prove Tyler sold the house without your written consent, several things happen automatically." She listed them. The sale could be voided, Tyler's executor authority would be revoked, and I would gain primary control over resolving the estate. Any money Tyler had already spent from the sale would become his personal debt to the estate. I didn't call Tyler. I didn't text. I didn't show up at his apartment demanding answers. I let him keep believing I was defeated, that I'd accepted the check and moved on, that the little sister who'd always deferred to his judgment had stayed in her place. Meanwhile, Harriet filed the legal challenge. She did it quietly, professionally, with all the documentation carefully prepared. The court date was set for 6 weeks out. Tyler had no idea what was coming. I went to work, taught my second graders graded papers. I had dinner with friends and visited Mom on weekends. I acted like everything was normal. Inside I was counting down the days. Mom asked me once if I was okay. "You seem different," she said. "Calmer somehow." Smiled. "I'm just accepting things I can't change." That was technically true. I was accepting that Tyler had betrayed me. What I wasn't mentioning was that I was no longer willing to let that betrayal stand. Tyler started spending the money immediately. I watched from a distance as his social media filled with updates. A new luxury car, black and sleek. Photos from a Caribbean vacation with his girlfriend. Posts about a new investment opportunity he was excited about. Each update felt like another slap. He was burning through money that should have been split between us, living it up while I struggled with my teacher's salary. His messages to me were casual, almost friendly. "Hope you're doing well, sis. Let me know if you need anything." The hypocrisy was stunning. He'd stolen my inheritance and was now offering crumbs of support like a generous benefactor. I replied with brief, neutral responses. "Thanks, doing fine. Busy with school." He never suspected anything. Why would he? In his mind he'd won. I'd taken the check, accepted his explanation, moved on. I was the emotional younger sister who didn't understand business. He was the competent executor who'd handled everything properly. His confidence would be his downfall. 3 weeks before the hearing, Harriet sent Tyler a certified letter. It was formal legal notice that his sale of the house was being challenged on grounds of unauthorized transaction. My phone exploded within hours. "What the hell did you do?" Tyler's voice was sharp with anger. "You're suing me. I'm challenging an illegal sale." "It wasn't illegal. I'm the executor. Executors can't sell major assets without all beneficiaries' consent. You never asked for mine." I could hear him breathing heavily. "You're overreacting. This is ridiculous. We'll let the court decide." "Vanessa, don't do this. You're going to embarrass yourself. Every lawyer will tell you executors have authority to manage estate assets. Then you have nothing to worry about." More silence. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted to something smoother, more manipulative. "This will blow over. You're upset right now, I get it. But dragging this through court will just waste money on lawyers. Let's talk this through like adults." Hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From satisfaction. The court date arrived on a cold Tuesday morning. I wore my best professional dress and met Harriet outside the courthouse. Tyler showed up in an expensive suit, his lawyer beside him. When he saw me, his expression flickered between anger and something that might have been nervousness. We entered the courtroom separately. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the case files while we waited. Tyler's lawyer spoke first, arguing that executors had broad authority to manage estates, that the house sale was a sound financial decision, and that my challenge was frivolous and emotionally motivated. Then Harriet stood. She calmly presented Dad's will, highlighting the specific clause Tyler had ignored. She showed documentation proving I'd never been asked to approve the sale, never signed any authorization, never even been properly informed until after the transaction was complete. The judge read the clause carefully. Her expression shifted slightly, becoming more focused. Tyler's lawyer argued the clause was ambiguous, unenforceable. Harriet countered with case law showing similar protective clauses had been upheld in other estate disputes. Tyler took the stand to explain his actions. He spoke confidently, describing his careful management of the estate, the favorable market conditions, the need to move quickly when a serious buyer appeared. "I tried to contact my sister," he said. "But she was grieving, not thinking clearly. I made the decision I thought was best for both of us." He sounded so reasonable, so responsible. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed him. But the judge's questions grew sharper. "Did you provide your sister with a full copy of the will before selling the property?" I summarized the relevant parts. "That's not what I asked. Did you provide her with the actual document?" Tyler hesitated. "No, but did you ask her to sign any authorization for the sale?" The timeline was tight. I needed to act fast. "Yes or no, Mr. Bennett?" Longer pause. "No." The courtroom was silent. Tyler's confidence was cracking, revealing desperation underneath. Harriet requested that the final clause be read aloud in full. The judge nodded and read slowly, emphasizing each word. When she finished, she looked directly at Tyler. "This language is very clear, Mr. Bennett. Your father specifically required written consent from all beneficiaries before any major asset could be sold. You didn't obtain that consent. In fact, you didn't even inform your sister of the sale until after it was complete." Tyler's lawyer tried to interject, but the judge held up her hand. "Furthermore," she continued, "this clause explicitly states that unauthorized sales trigger immediate revocation of executor authority and transfer of decision-making power to the non-consenting beneficiary. These aren't suggestions. They're binding legal conditions your father built into his will." The air felt heavy. Tyler's face had gone pale. "This court recognizes the validity and enforceability of this protective clause," the judge announced. "The sale is hereby voided pending resolution of this estate dispute. All proceeds must be returned and held in escrow." Mr. Bennett's authority as executor is suspended immediately. Tyler stared at the judge like she'd spoken a foreign language. His lawyer started shuffling papers frantically. The judge wasn't finished. Ms. Bennett, you are granted temporary authority over estate matters pending final resolution. We'll reconvene in 30 days to determine next steps. The aftermath unfolded quickly. The buyers, upon learning the sale was legally voided, withdrew from the transaction. They'd already lined up other properties and weren't interested in a legal battle. The money Tyler had spent, the car, the vacation, the investments, was now a personal debt he owed to the estate. Since the funds had already been distributed and spent, he was legally obligated to repay everything. Tyler tried calling me repeatedly. I let every call go to voicemail. His messages shifted from angry to desperate. Vanessa, we need to talk. This is getting out of hand. Can fix this. Don't let the lawyers ruin our family. Family. As if he hadn't already destroyed that when he'd betrayed my trust. I finally texted back. Communicate through Harriet. I have nothing to say to you. For the first time in our relationship, Tyler looked small, defeated. The competent older brother who'd always been 3 steps ahead had been outmaneuvered by the emotional little sister he'd underestimated. The irony wasn't lost on me. The phone calls started within days. Mom called first. Vanessa, honey, Tyler says you're taking him to court. Can't you two work this out privately? He sold Dad's house without telling me. That's not a misunderstanding. He's your brother. Family should resolve these things together. Cousins called. Aunts and uncles. Even Dad's old friends who'd somehow heard about the dispute. Everyone had the same message. Be reasonable, forgive and forget. Don't destroy the family over money. Money. They kept reducing it to money, as if that's all this was about. Nobody asked if Tyler had been reasonable when he'd excluded me from decisions about our father's estate. Nobody questioned whether he should forgive himself for betraying his sister's trust. I developed a script for these calls. I'm letting the law handle it. If Tyler followed Dad's wishes, he has nothing to worry about. Most people didn't call back after that. The ones who did weren't interested in my perspective anyway. They just wanted me to make things easier for Tyler. I stopped answering calls from family members. Some bridges needed to burn. Tyler showed up at my apartment 3 weeks after the hearing. I saw him through the peephole, looking disheveled and tired. This wasn't the polished corporate executive anymore. This was someone who'd realized the consequences were real. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. I'll fix this, he said immediately. I swear, Vanessa. I made mistakes but I can fix them. We can settle this without going back to court. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. How will you fix it? I'll repay the money. It'll take time but I will. And we can split the house sale properly when it goes through again. 50-50 like Dad wanted. His eyes were calculating even now, trying to figure out what would make me back down. What about the part where you lied to me? Yes. Where you sold our family home behind my back. Where you kept me in the dark about Dad's will. How do you fix that? I was trying to protect you from the stress. By stealing my inheritance. That's not, I wasn't. He stopped, running his hands through his hair. Look, I know I should have communicated better. But dragging this through court isn't helping anyone. It's just making everything worse. Worse for you, I corrected. Not for me. The final court hearing took place exactly 30 days after the first. Tyler arrived with a different lawyer this time. Someone who specialized in estate disputes and settlement negotiations. They proposed a solution. Tyler would repay all the money he'd spent, the house would be relisted with both our approvals, and we'd split everything exactly down the middle going forward. In exchange, I would drop the challenge to his executor authority. Harriet asked for a private moment with me. We stepped into a quiet corner of the courthouse hallway. It's a fair offer, she said. You'd get what you're entitled to without more legal battles. What happens if I don't accept? The judge will likely enforce the original ruling. Tyler loses executor authority permanently. You gain full control over the estate resolution. He still owes the money back, but you decide how and when the house gets sold, how assets are distributed, everything. I thought about Dad's protective clause. He'd written it specifically for this scenario. He'd known Tyler might do exactly what he'd done, and he'd given me the power to make my own choices. I want to proceed with the original ruling, I told Harriet. Tyler's face went white when Harriet announced my decision to the court. The judge's final ruling was comprehensive and unambiguous. Tyler's executor authority was permanently revoked. All estate matters would be decided by me, with Harriet's legal guidance. Tyler owed full restitution for money improperly spent, payable in monthly installments. The gavel came down with finality. Tyler's downfall wasn't dramatic. There was no courtroom outburst, no heated confrontation. Just quiet, devastating consequences stacking up systematically. His expensive car had to be sold to begin repaying the estate. The vacation expenses became monthly debt payments. His investment opportunity collapsed because he couldn't access the capital he'd counted on. People who'd admired his financial savvy started whispering about his judgment. His girlfriend left him after learning about his legal troubles and debt. Mutual friends quietly distanced themselves. He'd built an image as the successful, responsible older brother. That image shattered completely. Meanwhile, I moved forward quietly. No victory posts on social media. No dramatic announcements. Just the steady work of properly managing Dad's estate the way it should have been handled from the beginning. 3 months after the final ruling, I stood in Dad's house again. The buyers had withdrawn, and I decided not to rush into another sale. I had primary control now, and I wanted to make decisions thoughtfully. I walked through each room slowly, remembering. The kitchen where Dad burned Sunday pancakes. The living room where we'd watched old movies together. The study where he'd kept his important papers and, apparently, worried about his son's potential betrayal. For the first time since Dad died, the house felt safe again. Not because I owned it, but because I'd protected what he'd tried to protect. I'd honored his wishes by standing up for myself. I hired someone to do minor repairs and updates. Eventually I would sell, but on my timeline with careful consideration. The house would go to a family who would love it the way we had. Some of my former students' parents had heard about the situation. One mother, a real estate agent, offered to help whenever I was ready. Take your time, she said. Do it right. That was the difference. Tyler had rushed to profit. I was taking time to honor. Tyler sent one final message 6 months after everything ended. Came via email, not text, more formal, more distant. I didn't think you'd actually fight. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just acknowledgement that he'd underestimated me completely. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. The truth was simple. Tyler had assumed I'd always be the little sister who deferred to his judgment. The emotional one who couldn't handle business decisions. The one who'd accept whatever crumbs he decided to give her. He'd been confident I'd never stand up for myself. That confidence had destroyed him. I wasn't weak. I'd never been weak. I'd just been trusting, and there's a difference. When that trust was broken, I didn't collapse. I got strategic. I found out my rights, gathered my evidence, and let Dad's final protective gift do exactly what it was designed to do. Sometimes the people who betray you most aren't reckless. They're confident you'll never challenge them. They count on your compliance, your doubt, your fear of conflict. And when you finally do stand up, when you show them you're stronger than they ever imagined, you don't have to destroy them. You just have to let the truth finish what they started.